Event Leviathan number 5. It's a mystery thriller from DC Comics, written by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Malev. So, do we know it yet? Hey there, this is Perch. Event Leviathan. It is an interesting series because, on one hand, if you take this as just kind of a mystery thriller, part of the DC universe, not kind of a core event title. I mean, the problem here is a little bit of the comic publishers have gone to the mat so many times with events, and events will change the world, and this will shake you to your very core. That when readers see the word event, they both simultaneously breathe a deep sigh of frustration and they think that's something they've got to read. So if you took this series and you just called it, the mystery of Leviathan or whatever it happens to be. First off, it wouldn't sell as well. And DC knows this, which is why they plastered kind of event on it and why they did write solicits that were, this will shake you to your core and so on. That, DC did this to some extent to themselves. They definitely put forward the idea that this was going to be a big deal. And I think the challenge is you can look at this event in two ways. You can say, here's a nice little thriller with some mystery behind it, telling a kind of unique story, something along the lines of what Jessica Jones was for Marvel. This has Bendis and Malev doing a story in a style they know well, and they do well. And that's all fine. In fact, that's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. But the other way you can look at that is, or look at this, is that as a giant event, it sets certain expectations, and when it kind of rolls out the way it has, it can be a bit frustrating, particularly for people new to DC who do not have the big background and history of DC's continuity and legacy and everything else. That's really the challenge. Is that the fans, as I'm watching people kind of react positively or negatively to this, it's the kind of longtime DC fans that are interested in a different type of story that are reading something that they haven't seen much of in DC. They're digging this event, and the people that came on board for a big event or are following Bendis over, or they're increasingly being left out in the cold, which is why this event the sales are dropping a little bit. Some stores are still ordering reasonably high, hoping that kind of a rabbit being pulled out of the hat will work. I made a prediction, I think 2 issues ago, around Green Arrow being a possible, the man behind the mask, which was clearly some red herrings that were being set out. There were some things being done to lead you to that conclusion. And I think Bendis wanted people to think that. But at the end of the day, it was never going to be a character like that because it needed to be somebody smaller, somebody from deeper within DC continuity, and it just didn't make sense. So, getting to the review of this book, I mean, I'm kind of doing this in a different way, talking about more the challenge of this event as a whole and kind of where people are at, and then a little bit about the issue. So, I mean, the issue fundamentally picks off from Lois Lane going to talk to the second set, the shadow set of detectives, which is kind of classic Bendis of how he likes to kind of run things out, that you have a group and another group. And of course, it would make sense for these people to work together. I mean, the idea that, Zatanna and Constantine would not, be able to work with Superman or Batman or characters like that. I mean, Zatanna's been part of the Justice League. It's just, it's a ridiculous concept, but it does fit the idea of kind of the A team of flashy superheroes, and then kind of the B shadowy team, and they don't know about each other, and it's a double fake out and so on. So the comic opens up with a primary list of suspects, and of course it's none of these people. And it's clearly, obviously none of these people. But we get a little back and forth, and then kind of the wince moment. I hate the cringe. This is so cringe. It's just it's like it feels like fetch. It's not really going to happen. Let's just let it go. I get it. It's just been overused a bit. So we get this kind of embarrassing bit of Zatanna saying how thoroughly impressed she is with Lois Lane. I mean, she is a big fan. I'm a huge fan. I'm thrilled to be part of something like this with you. I'm a huge fan of yours. Just stop with that. We just got done with the Silencer last issue doing the same thing. Not everyone should be a secret huge fan of Lois Lane, the journalist. It doesn't make sense. They have not positioned Lois Lane in the DC universe to be anywhere close to the idea that these superheroes are like, wow, you know, we work with giants all the time, but Lois Lane, I'm you know, you're the person, I'm the huge just stop with a huge fan. It comes off as thoroughly obnoxious, and how it comes across, and this has kind of been the backlash reaction to Bendis in DC, is it comes across as Bendis kind of telling the fans, "Hey, this is an important person. This is somebody really cool. They're cool, right? I'm going to keep saying they're cool. Look, all the characters are saying they're cool. Oh my goodness, look, even Batman's saying she's cool. Batman's saying she's cool. So you like her too, right? She's cool, right? Right? Right?" And the reaction to that is always always a negative backlash. And we see this play out. You saw this play out in Marvel, you've seen this play out in DC. When you do stuff like that, fans rightly don't like to be told what they like and what they don't like. They just it irritates them. And the context of this event is even more jarring. It's like just stop with the promotion for the characters that the writer likes, and stop trying to kind of poke this bear. You'll do better if it's just organic. And I think that's the key. Let it be organic. Let the great writing and the storytelling. I mean, the cool thing is that Lois Lane is actually acting in a pretty interesting way in this book. She's doing kind of neat investigative things. She's showing that she has a heart as a daughter, and to her father. She's showing she has some good kind of sneaky plans with Superman and her husband. And it's like, this is good Lois Lane. The thing that jars you off of that is I'm your biggest fan. Oh my God, biggest fan, biggest fan, biggest fan. It starts to feel like Misery, the movie Misery with Kathy Bates. That's what it feels like. Anyway, um, and then what invariably happens is there's a backlash where fans are like, you know what, we don't know, we do not like her, we're not a big fan. And then the publisher's like, oh, what? Why are all the haters here? Why are all the angry, hating fans here? It's a silly cycle. Please break the cycle, please. Anyway, so we get into the issue, and the detective supreme team thinks it's Lois, and they're not really Lois, but they think it's Lois's dad. And then Lois' dad, of course, is in a hospital bed. They go to check that out. Superman is detained. Lois's dad says, "Hey, I know Leviathan is right." Oh, that's interesting that he's on Leviathan's side, but he's clearly not Leviathan. So that was just silly that this shadow group came up with the wrong person. In comes kind of somebody to do some damage, and they get shot by Lois's dad. And so this whole thing kind of breaks down and blows up. And Lois's dad gives her the big clue. It's all in the snowman's ticket. Look for the snowman's ticket. All of it. So this does give us a nice moment with Lois and her dad, a nice kind of good connective moment. But meanwhile, the action is going to shift over to Plastic Man and Superman, and Leviathan, reveals, himself, herself, itself to Superman, and they have a nice little monologue. What's odd here is that Plastic Man's kind of riding on Superman's back, and then is awake, and then suddenly being asleep. I guess I'm not sure precisely what happened there. The energy burst kind of knocked him out. You think, whatever, but it sets up a nice little back and forth. What's again cool, I'm looking for some of the good things here. Bendis, I think, is getting the hang of writing some of these characters in ways that fans can respond to. Superman says, stop selling, I'm not buying, what do you want? That's good Superman moment, feels like Superman. I think Bendis has struggled a little bit making Superman feel like Superman. Batman's actually starting to feel a little bit more like Batman. Still too chatty. That's kind of Bendis's problem. Word bubbles everywhere. So many word bubbles. But he does some good moments, and then he breaks it by having the villain or the other character, somebody, then have to tell the character what they are. And this is really, it's meant as a speech, but it winds up coming across as informing the reader. Like, I'm not confident that the story alone can get the reader to understand what's being said, so I'm just going to tell the reader what's being, what they're supposed to think and feel. It's like, not everything is your fault, not everything is your responsibility, Clark. I know you've been through some weird stuff with your father lately. Here, it didn't end well. I can relate. I know that struggle. Just let it, just chill. Not everybody has to be chatty Cathy here with every single bit of the plan. So, in the midst of all this, they're driving the Batvan, and Damian kind of puts it together, which is cool. I like that Damian is getting a good moment here, and Damian puts it together that this is related to the Manhunters, and there have been other Manhunters. Who are the other Manhunters? Well, there's been many. There's been many Manhunters, and I'm not going to bore everybody with all the details, but we go kind of all the way to Paul Kirk, the original OG Manhunter. We've had Dan Richards. We've had many different Manhunter characters over the years. We've had Mark Shaw, and there's a number of characters who could fit in here and fit. Um, Chase Lawler. So there's a bunch of characters that could fit in here. A couple that are more likely than others. I have my theory. Unfortunately, my theory is informed by a good guy on Twitter who I think put it all together with some really good, nice, extensive research. And I'll let him kind of voice it if that's what he wants to do. But I think good on him. He figured it out a couple issues ago. So some nice stuff. This issue, it's kind of the big tipping point. We're getting to the next. We do get the Mask of the Secret. This entire event has been about truth. We got rid of spies because the first order of the business in the New World is no more secrets. And Superman says, "You," and that sets up kind of the next issue. I guess we get one more little final beat of Talia al Ghul is here, and from kind of the forget about continuity here. She's all over the place, but she's here. She's with Silencer, it looks like, which places it in kind of a unique position of where all that stuff's at. Nice to see that Silencer is getting some more play because she's a huge fan of Lois Lane. Absolutely. So she's saying, let Manhunter step outside. So, again, the villains are more clever than everything else going on. So to the non-long-term DC fans, just in a very quick nutshell, Manhunter is a title. Many different characters have carried that title all the way back to the 40s, maybe probably the 40s. I think the 40s, and they have and this is not the Martian Manhunter. This is not that character. This is just plain old Manhunter. And there's been a number of different kind of stints, and a lot of people get confused by Manhunters as belonging to an event that went on back in the, I want to say, late 80s, maybe early 90s, featuring the Manhunters, and um, that was kind of that's where a lot of people's heads are at. But the Manhunter kind of role existed long before that. Lots of different characters carried it and were part of that. And then it gets really kind of confusing as to where it all goes. So, Manhunter as a role, especially in more recent years, there's been clones. There's been a lot of kind of craziness going on. Several have been kind of in the middle of hero and villain. Oftentimes, they're heroic, but then they kind of do some villainous things, and they kind of there's a sacrifice or something that brings them back to the table. So what they're basically kind of revealing here is that we're bringing back one of those, and I have my theory as to which, but we're bringing back one of those Manhunters into the mix and having them be here as Leviathan, and this new organization of kind of Manhunters are Leviathan, or Leviathan is something new, and it's the Manhunter guy that's running it. Whatever the case is, hopefully some other writers kind of take on the charge and go with this. I think the shame of this, regardless whether you liked it or didn't like it or whatever else, is that more often than not, the whole kind of a Bendis or a King or Snyder, somebody, particularly in DC right now, create something pretty cool. They get some interesting toys, they bring them out of the toy box, and there's something to play with. And then the other books don't follow suit. There's either a lack of kind of planning or organization. Again, the editorial staff at DC is thoroughly understaffed, and so normally, well, that's not necessarily a fair statement, but oftentimes you'd see editors kind of helping coordinate stuff like this, or you think that is the case. That's not necessarily happening right now, and it's not because the editors are, this isn't a case where the editors not doing their job. It's a case of just different stories are being told, different stuff's being thrown at the wall, and seeing what will stick. And it's left us kind of with this odd place of titles that are not necessarily connected as much as they should. And the pity there, so I'm not really trying to assign blame, but the pity there is writers wind up creating potentially interesting stuff. They come out with some concepts that are new and cool and deserve to have some attention. And instead, what happens is Every writer's kind of doing their own things. Continuity gets kind of out of place. The higher ups, the editor in chief, kind of that level, spends their time trying to reconnect the continuity into something that makes sense. And you have what you have here, which is Leviathans come up, potentially a brand new secret organization. Will anyone besides Bendis reference it in their books? I hope so. I want to see that kind of stuff. I want to see when a writer brings out something cool. I'd like to see some other writers and some other titles kind of take it and run with it too, and integrate it into their storytelling. But that doesn't happen so much, and so that's where does this all leave the book? Well, we have one more issue, sixth issue coming up, and then we will see where it all lands. Maybe this is all a big double fake out, and it's really Lois Lane, but it's one of the Manhunters at this point. So we'll see how that all rolls out. What this means is a brand new status quo. Maybe we'll get a brand new Manhunter book. Hopefully, this does not become Bendis's. I think what would this be like his 71st title? I believe he's doing a month, so that might be stretching it a bit thin. I would time to pull in some other people. Just saying. Anyway, what's your theory? How'd you like the issue? How do you like this event? Any of this stuff, touch a chord with you? Makes sense? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe. If you like this, please subscribe. I would appreciate it very, very much. And, follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thanks for listening.